Good evening and welcome to Sports Report. On tonight's show, we've plenty of youth sport for you to enjoy as Kevin brings us the highlights from the Strait games over in Tarifa. But first, let's get you started with a look back at last weekend's thrilling finale to the Futsal First Division playoffs. Final weekend of play for the Futsal First Division, and moving into Game 2 of the playoff final, it was a David versus Goliath situation for Phoenix as they faced the all-conquering Lynx. 15 wins and just the one draw in the regular season for Lynx. Indeed, they'd only 3 losses to their names in the past 4 seasons, and the first game of this final had finished 10-3 in their favour. On paper, many might have expected this fixture to be little more than a formality for Lynx, but it seems nobody had told Phoenix that. Lynx caught napping at the back, and with about 20 seconds on the clock, Phoenix were a goal to the goods. Lynx bit back soon enough, Martin showing great composure to pick his moment and remind everyone why he's got twice as many goals as his closest competition on the list of top scorers. A couple of minutes later and he was at it again. A cheeky backheel this time for his second as Lynx took the lead. Montovio found himself free to pick up his team's third, and things now seem to be going to plan for Lynx. But if ever they were going to be given a lesson on complacency, this was it. Phoenix tightened up at the back and stepped it up a gear. Making the most of a failed clearance, Garavante kept his cool to find Figueras, who slotted home for Phoenix's second of the game. The Reds were playing at full throttle now, and Lynx just could not match them for intensity. The equaliser just 2 minutes later wouldn't have surprised anyone. Just a couple of minutes of the half left and Lynx had their backs to the wall now. Morillo spearheading another attack here before being taken down by the Lynx keeper. Phoenix were demanding a red, but the keeper did have cover and the ref correctly produced a yellow. The wall did its job, but there was time for some more drama as time ran down. The fouls had been adding up for Lynx, and with a minute and a half to go, Phoenix got a penalty and Bettis stepped up to take. A stroke of fortune perhaps as the ball bounced kindly off the bar for Figueras, who smashed it in to give Phoenix a 4-3 lead they could carry into the break. Lynx would eventually break through though, a low strike from Gomez making it 4-all. And Morillo was very quick on his feet and lobbed the keeper from halfway directly from the restart. A little too quickly though, the official disallowed the goal as he hadn't quite waited for the whistle, much to Phoenix's annoyance. The match was now balanced on a knife edge and emotions were running high on both sides. Ruiz danced his way past the keeper to roll the ball into the goal, but not before it had crossed the byline, and just seconds later the pendulum would swing in the opposite direction. Another accumulation of fouls gave Phoenix their second penalty of the game. Soisa stepped up and struck it with venom. Phoenix retaking the lead with less than 5 minutes remaining. Aggregate score counting towards the championship, they'd earned a third and final game to decide the league. After the game, I caught up with Phoenix's Nevin Delipiani to hear his thoughts.
Lynx are a very hard team, very hard to beat. They've just lost, I think, 4 times in as many years. So we didn't have anything to lose. So we just went for it. And we were lucky this time round that it went our way. Maybe it's not the result that everybody here today expected, but we gave it our all and it came out in our side this time. So we're very happy.
You put Lynx in a position that they're just not used to, having to chase a game. Was this part of your game plan?
Yes, we learned from our mistakes from last week. We gave them too much time on the ball last week. So this time round we thought that we had to have more possession this time round and get them where they're not used to, which is without the ball. So we tried to, the best we can, to move the ball around and make it hard for them, and it worked.
And so it all came down to this. Less than 24 hours after Gib Phoenix had inflicted just the 4th defeat Lynx had suffered in the past 4 years, it was all or nothing. Winner takes all in the very last game of the playoff to decide the title. Lynx started the game with a marked intensity they had been missing at the start of the previous day's game when they'd conceded so early. They wouldn't be caught out twice, but Phoenix had proven themselves Lynx's equals once already and were visibly buoyed by the previous day's win. They wouldn't be intimidated, and they started the game with the better chances. However, both sides began quite cautiously and both sets of players were committed to not conceding the first goal. Lynx were very aware of how difficult they'd found it once they fell behind in the previous game, and Phoenix knew from experience that once Lynx get out in front, they have the ability to completely control the game. It was Lynx who eventually broke the deadlock though. From defending a corner, it took just one touch to release Gomez, who outpaced the defenders and kept it low as the keeper couldn't get down quick enough. 1-0 Lynx. The team in black regained a bit of the swagger that has characterised their domination in recent years, and Ruiz came close to doubling their lead after this little bit of magic. But Lynx's lead wouldn't last long, and Phoenix hadn't come this far to roll over on the final stretch. Sheer force of will and a lovely final touch by Pessina to set up the Lipiani, so Phoenix grab a deserved equaliser. 5 minutes later, and an unpopular decision by the officials, amongst the Phoenix fans and players anyway, as players called back and a penalty awarded to Lynx for foul accumulations. The keeper had kept one Lynx penalty out in the previous game, and the post did so this time. The keeper might have got his fingertips to it. Whatever the case, the score remains 1-1. Lynx would have another free shot just a few minutes later though, and there were no mistakes by Ruiz as he rifled the ball into the net to make it 2-1. That will be all the action in the first half, still too close to call with just a goal in it, but the Phoenix players would have to watch themselves in the second half as they'd begun to amount a few yellows, and Beres earned himself another for dissent as he walked off the pitch at the break. Lynx looked the more threatening side after the restart and rattled the frame of the goal once as they looked to put the game beyond Phoenix. And it was Gomez with a quick thinking interception who recovered from a bit of a bobble to make it 3-1 on the day to Lynx. But Phoenix would again fight back, and the number 18, instrumental in so much of Phoenix's build-up play, picked the ball up after hanging back and let rip. The Lynx keeper could do nothing as the ball flew in off the inside of the post. 3-2 Lynx, Phoenix once again within touching distance. Their celebrations would be short-lived, however. Lynx's next goal was a perfect piece of choreography direct from the kickoff. Not a single touch on the ball by a Phoenix player, culminating in a nutmeg for the assist and an emphatic finish to make it 4-2. Phoenix had fought long and hard to get themselves into this position, but overall victory was a bridge too far. With a few minutes remaining, Ruiz made it 5-2 to Lynx with this little clip, and with that, it was game over. Phoenix gave it their all and played with 5 men forward, trying in vain to snatch back some of the goals they needed, but unfortunately for them, all that achieved was to leave them exposed at the back as the number 11 picked up the ball and rolled it in from long range for the last goal of the game in the dying seconds. 6-2 the score, and Lynx were once again crowned Futsal League winners. I spoke with Lynx coach Nikolai Vado.
Job done, certainly not as easy as some might have thought it was going to be after the first match.
No, it's not. It's been a very hard year, very long year. We've had to work very hard in training, and the competition has obviously been a lot stronger. And as you can see, the players from coming from abroad to futsal, so every year it's becoming more and more competitive.
How much of a surprise was yesterday's game? Did Phoenix catch you off guard?
No, yesterday we had some guys with the yellow cards accumulated, so we couldn't bring our strongest squad. But yes, it was they've been playing very hard. Where were we?
So to pick up.
Yellow card.
So yellow card, yeah.
Yeah. So basically, it was not a surprise. The other team we cannot take any way away from them. They deserved to win yesterday, but we've come back.
Certainly made for an exciting final for the neutral. Speaking of finals, hasn't benefited you much, so I sort of can't imagine the answer. But what do you think of the new format of having this playoff towards the end of the league?
Well, the playoffs, the idea of the playoffs is to bring more atmosphere, bring the crowds in, and make futsal more popular in Gibraltar. So that was the aim of the playoffs. But yes, it played against us because we dominated the league without losing a game. But anyway, the idea is to bring futsal to everybody and put it more popular.
certainly serving to that purpose. Lynx have basically dominated the futsal scene in Gibraltar for about 4 years now. How do you keep the team hungry? How do you keep them wanting more?
There's one thing that we are here, it's the Champions League. This is what keeps us motivated, and this is what keeps the players together. And this is probably why we've won today, because the Champions League is what these guys want. So, yeah.
Close, but no cigar for Gib Phoenix. Promising signs as they build towards next season though. And as for Lynx, it'll be all eyes on the Futsal Cup as they look to mix it with Europe's elites. A bit of a catch-up now with Sally Holmes, resident rhythmic gymnastics coach, as we caught her in between competitions. Some of our youngest stars had just got back from the Al-Andalus Championships, some of which were getting ready to shoot off to the Strait Games at the weekend in Tarifa. And that was just the start of what would be a very busy summer programme for a group of highly dedicated athletes. Also a brief mention of Emma Voscher after her amazing outing to the Commonwealth Games. Being involved in the coaching setup herself means she continues to be a role model for all the youngsters involved, as she's proven just how far you can make it with the right amount of hard work.
It's been a great time. We had to qualify twice, so it was 2 phases first, and then this last weekend was the final, so it was the Al-Andalus Championships, where we had 10 girls competing, and we had Faith coming away as the Al-Andalus champion.
So an impressive excursion over there, and impressive as well, we had Emma Voscher a few weeks back now, a couple of months back. She went over to the Commonwealth. So how was her first trip to the Commonwealth Games?
Emma's worked really hard. It was a whole year. Well, actually, she'd been preparing for many years before, but for this final preparation, it's been a year of every single day training, and I think it finally paid off. She did really well. I was really, really proud of her, and I think it was a great experience for her as well.
How do you think she handled the pressure? I mean, it's pretty daunting to have to do it, even if you're very familiar with it, even having to perform in front of so many people. So how do you think she did?
Well, it was a full crowd. You know that there was 10,000 people in the audience, so we had the biggest audience there, and I think she did really well. At the end, she even had little fans coming up and asking for autographs.
Makes it all worthwhile. So a couple of these girls were first-timers as well, not quite for 10,000 people, but how do you think they managed in front of their crowds for the first time?
Well, we had some new little ones competing in the Al-Andalus, so we had some little 6 and 7-year-olds competing, and I think they handle it very well. If you consider that they're out there in the audience, in front of everybody, doing their routine, I think they're doing really well.
Because it's an important psychologically, isn't it? It's one thing to be able to have your routine done perfectly, but another thing to perform in front of a crowd of people that you're not aware of. So how are you preparing for the Strait Games, where you're going to have a few first-timers going over as well?
Well, they practice every single day, so some of them are training every day 4 hours, so they know their routines off by heart. But it's the fact, as you say, going out there, so it's psychological, going out there and making sure that they can do it in front of a crowd of people.
And they've been performing well so far from what we've seen.
They're performing very well. I'm proud of everyone.
It's coming up next weekend.
I've got 2 girls, Lily Murphy and Thea Cawthorne. They've actually qualified to go to British Championships for the individuals in the UK next weekend.
How are preparations for that going?
We're training really hard, so we've got group finals and we've got individual finals, so they're having to split their time, but I think they're doing really well, thank you.
And hopefully the Strait Games put them in the right frame of mind to perform to their full potential in front of crowds away from home. We'll keep you all up to date on how they fare on their upcoming travels.
You know something? We are the Batman and the Robin of the recycling. Come on, come on, recycle. It's a classic game.
In 1998, the Ayuntamiento of Algeciras, with the governments of Gibraltar and the Ciudad Autónoma of Ceuta, came together wanting to create an event that would help to foster friendship and good relations amongst the youngest members of their respective communities. The idea was developed, and that summer, the first Strait Games were held in Algeciras. The sporting event brought together school children from the three communities in a non-competitive environment in which new friendships were to be the real prize. The Strait Games was a success, and the following year, in 1999, the towns of La Línea, San Roque and Los Barrios came on board. It wasn't until 2000, year in which Gibraltar hosted its first games, that Tarifa came on board. This year, the Strait Games celebrated its 21st edition, and for the third time, played out on the wind-blown white sand shores of Tarifa. Sun, sea and a lot of wind. We're in Tarifa, of course. It's the 21st edition of the Strait Games, where 100 of our school children today will be participating in 10 sporting categories. The games are non-competitive, and the main aim is to foster friendship through sport. 1,000 school children, sports reps and families from La Línea, Algeciras, Ceuta, Gibraltar, San Roque and Tarifa congregated at Tarifa's Municipal Stadium for a short opening ceremony that played out against the scenic natural backdrop of the iconic white sand dunes of Tarifa. The ceremony was opened by Tarifa's mayor, Francisco Ruiz. He insisted on the non-competitive nature of the games and said they were a perfect opportunity to also showcase our respective communities to one another under the banner of sports. 10 times kitesurfing world champion Gisela Pulido was the game's official torchbearer, with the mayor describing her as a perfect personification of what makes Tarifa. Following the lighting of the cauldron, the games were officially opened, and the young sportsmen and women set off to one of the many sporting venues across town that hosted the 17 sports on offer. And with a whole day of sport ahead, our kids made good use of their time, like our taekwondo students who went through their paces on the Tarifa Paseo Marítimo ahead of their events later in the afternoon. On the other side of town, at the Pabellón de la Raqueta, we caught up with the table tennis team and their mentor and Strait Games veteran, Joe Martinez. So Joe, we've been coming to the Strait Games now for 21 years. How important is this for our children?
Well, I think it's a great day out. That gives them an opportunity to play people from all the surrounding area. In our own case, it's great to get them to know some other players. In particular, Tarifa have got a very good young player, and her sister is also part of the Spanish national squad. So it's just great, you know. But as far as the competition itself, it's also quite interesting. But the main thing is to just get them to be out there and enjoy themselves.
And obviously playing with other players, different standards, and also importantly, the game's all about getting our children to engage with the others as well. We've got a bit of a different element with Gibraltar. You yourself have been a teacher, so you've probably seen the erosion at first hand as well. The language, Spanish. Is it acting as a barrier?
Well, actually, they seem to look at them as if it's a bit weird that they're talking like that. But as you know, it's changed now, and I think it's got a lot to do with the advent of satellite television in the early 90s and computer games. So they're just exposed to the language all the time in their leisure hours. There was a time that when the Straits Games started, our kids would speak in Spanish, but it seems a little bit more difficult now. But they do seem to get on, and because they all understand the language. It's just that they want to speak in English all the time. But as you can see behind you, they're all interacting with one another, and I think it's great. It's a great day out.
So is this your first Strait Games, or have you been coming for a number of years now?
This is my first one.
And what do you think so far?
It's good.
Is this a sport that you've been practicing for a number of years now?
Yeah, halfway.
Yeah. What do you like about the sport?
It's fun how the ball goes when you spin, and it's interesting knowing all the rules.
And what about you?
There's like a lot of things you can learn about this sport. There's a lot of things, and you enjoy it and have fun.
And you've been playing for a number of years now?
Yes.
And it's not your first time here?
My first time. It's my first.
It's your first time, yeah? Is it like what you thought it would be?
Yeah, but it's different.
So you've been playing table tennis now for a number of years?
Yeah, I started when I was around 5. So.
And are you meeting many new people outside of the Gibraltar team as well?
Yeah.
Accommodated someplace in the hilly part of Tarifa was a Parque Feria, which accommodated the seven-side football, with Team Gibraltar playing in green colours, this year being represented by the winners of the inter-school competition, Bishop Fitzgerald. The town's municipal swimming pool saw our swimmers in action, and this year Gibraltar presented its youngest ever team, and they didn't disappoint. Our 6 boys and 6 girls swam with passion and power, much to the pride of coaches Melissa Holland and Damina Chang Chipolina. Next door to the municipal stadium, the aptly named Polideportivo de la Marina played host to our rhythmic gymnasts, who had to wait until the afternoon for their turn, with basketball, which got off to a start immediately after the opening ceremony, making use of the premises first. And we caught up with the gymnasts as they prepared for their afternoon event.
So after this, you're also looking to go into the British Championships, so you have to train even harder then?
Yeah.
And are you excited about today?
Yes.
Yeah. And yourself?
Yes.
Is it the first time you come to the Strait Games?
This is my second.
Second?
First. This is my first.
Your first, yes? And you're all excited to enjoy the first time you were here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do it.
And other than the sports, I see lots of girls here, you're all more or less the same age, and you make friends doing this sport? Yeah. So you're all good friends and you made new friendships as well?
Yes.
And when you come to the Strait Games, you get to talk to children from other towns and other cities, like Ceuta, La Linea and other places.
Yeah, we don't really talk Spanish, but she does.
Back at the municipal stadium, our athletes took to the track with long jump and an obstacle course sharing the facilities. Jumping from one event to another, trying to witness as many Team Gibraltar performances as possible, was the Sports Authority's CEO Regan Lima, who shared a few thoughts with us.
We've got just under 100, 99 to be exact, in 10 different disciplines. And as usual, it was a very early start this morning, but kids were very excited. We made our way over. Great organisation in terms of giving out the breakfast picnics and a very short opening ceremony, which is what the kids want, because they just want to get on with what they're here for, which is to participate and have fun.
And we're competing in 10 disciplines, I believe?
Yeah, that's 10 disciplines. You're very much restricted or limited to what the host city puts on. Each host city has different venues, and obviously they play to their strengths. Table tennis is back this year, who haven't been back for a couple of years. It has been in games, but no Gibraltar representation. But apart from that, it's more or less the usual suspects again.
And the Strait Games being a non-competitive event, we've been coming for 21 years. How competitive are our children really?
Everybody gets a winner's medal. There are no winners, no losers, but I'm a sports person myself. When you're out on the court or when you're running your race, you want to win, and kids will want to win. But it's all done in good spirits, and the aim is to get cities together, to get kids to meet people from different cities, and to have fun and compete. And there's no importance placed on who wins and who doesn't.
One thing of note, for 21 years we've been coming, we belong to another generation. The language element, perhaps, is it acting as a barrier?
Controversial one, yeah, but it is. We tend to speak. We are speaking less and less Spanish for some reason in Gibraltar. I've got a 9-year-old and he tends to speak less Spanish to me. So it can act as a barrier because they don't intermingle. But they are trying, and they are.
All of Tarifa's sporting facilities, including a number of schools, are being used to accommodate the almost 1,000 school children who travelled here from 5 cities to take part in this year's edition of the Strait Games.
That's all for tonight. We hope you enjoyed the show. Join us at the same time next week, where we'll be bringing you the highlights of the Olympique versus Lynx playoff, the end of season for the pool, and much, much more. Bye for now.